Ding ding! Round 4. South Korean and US negotiators meet in Washington in the coming hours for their 4th round of defense cost-sharing talks. It could get testy as the allies couldn't be further apart on how much Seoul should pay. After days of relative calm and a vote viewed as an endorsement of the protesters' cause, the fragile peace in Hong Kong is broken, with fresh clashes between demonstrators and police. Plus, the EU's new leadership takes office, promising a more united Europe that's ready to tackle major challenges, including climate change. Our top story this morning: South Korean and US negotiators head to the table for their 4th round of defense cost-sharing talks in Washington today, as the two remain poles apart on how much Seoul should pay for American troops stationed on the Korean peninsula. But while the White House is turning the screw, the US Congress has actually lauded South Korea's budget commitments to security. In its defense bill for fiscal year 2020, the Senate noted that South Korea spends about 2.5% of its GDP on defense, the highest figure among US allies. It also praised the Seoul government's shouldering of additional costs, including the construction of Camp Humphreys for US troops in South Korea. The Senate also said the special measures agreement should ensure mutual benefits and respect in recognition of South Korea's substantial cost-sharing commitments. President Moon Jae-in will meet his top aides this afternoon for the first time in 3 weeks. The president is likely to address the deadlock at the National Assembly, delaying the passage of hundreds of bills, including the 2020 budget bill and those regarding electoral reform and a corruption probe unit. Public anger has been mounting towards the main opposition Liberty Korea Party, whose request for filibuster prevented the plenary session taking place to actually approve those bills. President Moon is expected to call for the swift handling of the bills, especially ones aimed at better ensuring the safety of children. South Korean exports declined for the 12th straight month in November, weighed down by a whole bevy of external factors. Lee Min-sun has this report.
South Korea's exports plunged by double digits on year in November, falling for the 12th consecutive month. The Trade Ministry says outbound shipments fell 14.3% on year to $44 billion last month due to slowing global demand and the ongoing US-China trade dispute. The slump was most evident in the nation's key export items, with semiconductor exports tumbling over 30%, while petrochemical goods fell nearly 20%. Shipments to China fell 12%, while those to the US and Japan dropped over 8% and 10% respectively. With another tough year expected ahead, Trade Minister Song Hyun-mo announced that the government will spend around $134 billion to help exporting firms, including $19.5 billion to expand trade finance. Meanwhile, South Korea's trade deficit with Japan dipped to a 17.5-year low in November, tallied at $1.1 billion. This was partially attributed to Korea's diversification of chip and import sources to include non-Japanese suppliers, as well as a reduction in investment to Japan for these sectors. Japan has been even harder hit by the trade curbs, with export to Korea tumbling 23.1% in October compared to the 13.9% decline of Korean exports to Japan. Lee Min-sun, Arirang News.
US beef shipments to South Korea continue to increase, accounting for over half of the country's beef imports. According to data released by the Korea International Trade Association, American beef imports stood at over 200,000 tons during the first 10 months of 2019, jumping nearly 8% from the same period last year. On the other hand, beef shipments from Australia and New Zealand went down 1% and 14% respectively. South Korea's inflation has turned positive for the first time in 4 months. According to Statistics Korea, consumer prices in November rose 0.2% on year. This follows a 0% reading in October and a first ever drop of 0.4% in September. Statistics Korea said consumer inflation in November was boosted by rising prices for electricity, gas and services, offsetting a fall in agricultural and industrial goods. Now, after a week or so of relative calm and a historic vote that boosted the protesters' cause, protesters and police have clashed yet again in Hong Kong. Lee Seung-jae with the details.
Hong Kong's pro-democracy protesters and the police clashed once again on Sunday as thousands took to the busy tourist district of Tsim Sha Tsui. The unrest had been brewing since Saturday, when a group of protesters blocked roads and set fire to a subway station entrance. While there had been relative calm in Hong Kong for the past week, activists have called for the need to maintain the movement's momentum. Protesters renewed pressure on the government by marching in 3 separate rallies across the city, including one showing gratitude for U.S. support. Hundreds of people carried American flags as they marched to the U.S. consulate, expressing gratitude for legislation aimed at protecting human rights in Hong Kong, which U.S. President Donald Trump signed into law last week. A speaker shouted messages thanking the U.S. president, calling his legislation a big gift to Hong Kong. Sunday's protests come as a top Hong Kong official said the government was looking into forming an independent committee to review the handling of the clashes. More protests are planned throughout this week, with a major gathering expected on December 8th, with a rally planned by Civil Human Rights Front, a group which organized the million-strong marches in June. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
The European Union's new leadership has taken office, promising a more united Europe. Germany's Ursula von der Leyen officially replaced Jean-Claude Juncker on Sunday, becoming the first woman in the job. In a ceremony on Sunday, she pledged that Europe will become a global leader and role model on the issue of climate change.
It will not only be good for our planet, not only be good for the climate, but it will also be important for the European Union, who will then be the exporter of knowledge, the exporter of technologies, the one who knows that green financing pays off.
In order to make Europe carbon-free by 2050, as promised, von der Leyen plans to launch the European Green Deal within the next 3 months. Her first schedule is at a UN climate summit in Madrid that's scheduled to start on Monday. And the new European Commission President, Ursula von der Leyen, has reaffirmed the EU's firm support for South Korea's drive for complete denuclearization and lasting peace here on the Korean Peninsula. During their phone conversation on Sunday, President Moon congratulated her for taking the reins of the European Commission, anticipating the advancement of ties between Seoul and Brussels under her leadership. They agreed to cooperate closely on regional and international issues as they strengthen their strategic partnership. President Moon also requested her support for Seoul's successful hosting of the second P4G summit on green growth next June. According to the Blue House, the conversation was arranged at the EU's request, with von der Leyen exchanging greetings with the leaders of all G20 member nations. Now to our world news, and both the victims killed in the brutal knife attack on London Bridge last Friday have turned out to be University of Cambridge graduates. And we will turn to our Kim Da-mi for more information on that, I believe. No? Okay. Oh, yes, Da-mi, tell us more about what's happening regarding the London Bridge attack.
Right, Mark. London's Metropolitan Police said on Sunday that the 25-year-old Jack Merritt was attacked during an event hosted by a Learning Together, a network of academics and criminal justice organizations. Another victim, Saskia Jones, is also a fellow Cambridge graduate, but no other details have been released. The deadly stabbing attack on Friday also left 5 people injured, and the suspect, Usman Khan, was shot dead by police on site. This year's Black Friday shaped up to be one of the biggest one on record, with Americans spending a whopping $7.4 billion online and another $4.2 billion on Thanksgiving. Sales are expected to shoot up even more on Cyber Monday. Kim Yo-san reports.
Black Friday shoppers splashed out close to $7.5 billion in just digital sales. Citing Adobe Analytics, CNBC said this year's Black Friday was the second largest internet shopping day ever, with the average order value per consumer standing at nearly $170, up 6% year-on-year.
I've been looking online mostly. We're just here to see the window displays. But online shopping is the way to go. You can do it from home and you don't have to worry about the crowds.
It also added that consumers already spent over $4 billion on Thanksgiving, a 14.5% jump from the holiday a year ago. Although this year's shopping season is the shortest since 2013 because Thanksgiving falls on the last Thursday in November, the U.S. National Retail Federation forecasts the holiday sales to rise between 3.8 and 4.2%, up from last year's 2% growth. It cites the better conditions in the job market as the main driver. Many enthusiastic shoppers were excited about some good deals.
I got some shoes for half price, and I got some shirts also for about half price.
During the 24 hours of Cyber Monday, Adobe Analytics expects spending to hit over $9 billion, a whopping 19% increase from a year ago. Kim Yo-san, Arirang News.
A fragment of wood believed to have formed part of Jesus' manger has been returned to Bethlehem after more than 1,000 years in Europe. Pope Francis ordered a return of the relic on Saturday from Rome's Basilica of Santa Maria Maggiore as a gift. The relic will now be permanently enshrined inside St. Catherine's Church in Bethlehem. And its return coincided with the beginning of Advent, a 4-week period leading up to Christmas. The thumb-sized relic had been in Rome since the 7th century after being gifted approximately 1,400 years ago by Saint Sophronius of Jerusalem to Pope Theodore I in Rome.
Now, household appliances sold by LG Electronics have really surged in popularity in some of the world's biggest markets. According to industry sources, the South Korean tech giant's washers and dryers have been selected as the best in the US market by a Consumer Reports survey. LG products also topped the rankings of the American Customer Satisfaction Index's home appliance brands this year for its innovative kitchen and laundry appliances. In the Japanese market, LG's OLED TV sales have been increasing as well in recent months. Now, in the race to dominate the rapidly growing electric vehicle industry, various companies are getting their engines revved up. Global automakers are fighting to take pole position in the market as increasingly eco-conscious drivers look for cleaner options than the traditional gasoline-powered car. Kim Jae-hee reports.
2020 is expected to mark the beginning of a new era in electric mobility. Global automakers are undergoing radical transformations, substantially upping their investments to develop ever more environmentally friendly cars.
Due to environmental issues, internal combustion vehicles are being phased out. With the use of battery motors instead of engine transmissions, electric vehicles are the eco-friendly alternative. The deployment of EVs will only pick up speed.
The size of the global electric vehicle market is projected to reach over $567 billion by 2025. With global car manufacturers vying to take a lead in the market, one of the major players, South Korea's Hyundai Motor Group, is aiming to increase its annual sales of electric vehicles to over 500,000 by the middle of the next decade.
Hyundai Kia Automotive Group ranks second in terms of global sales of electric vehicles. We are developing various technologies and building infrastructure for electric vehicles in cooperation with the government and related ministries. We are also striving to become number one by making our vehicles the most competitive.
Hyundai Motor will also showcase its latest electric mobility technologies at the upcoming International Electric Vehicle Expo, an annual event held in South Korea to promote the globalization of green transportation.
The expo aims to contribute to the rapid distribution of electric mobility, as well as the early modernization of technology and policy exchange between various countries.
A leading expert from the International Electric Vehicle Expo Committee said the expo promotes carbon-free technology that will ultimately lead to a healthier planet and more jobs.
The era of cars that burn oil to power their engines is shifting to the electric era. EVs will be a mainstay for the next generation, and the market will provide new job opportunities.
The 7th International Electric Vehicle Expo will take place for 4 days from April 29th next year. Car makers from around the world will showcase their latest car models at the International Convention Center in Jeju. Kim Jae-hee, Arirang News.
Now, in sports, Jeonbuk Hyundai Motors have won their third straight K-League title after defeating Gangwon FC in the final match of the season, with the match taking place at home at Jeonju World Cup Stadium on Sunday. Son Jun-ho's lone header in the 39th minute gave Jeonbuk the win and the title. Ulsan Hyundai Tigers, who went into the final day with a 3-point lead, lost 4-1 to Pohang and lost the title due to goal difference. Jeonbuk is now tied with Songnam with the most number of K-League titles at 7. Time for our Life and Info segment now, which we have every Monday for you. The South Korean capital has issued penalties for more than 400 drivers whose vehicles emit large volumes of carbon dioxide. Now, this crackdown began on Sunday as part of Seoul City's efforts to really tackle the high level of air pollution we see many days here in the South Korean capital. Under the new measure, cars with so-called grade 5 engines, the lowest among the rankings of clean engines, are prohibited from entering the green transport zone from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. every day. The green zone marks the central area of Seoul, located within the 4 major gates of the city. Those who violate the law will be slapped with a $200 penalty. However, drivers with disabilities, emergency vehicles and cars with diesel particulate filters installed will be exempt. Now, the increased number of falls by elderly people during the winter brings with it an elevated risk of hip fractures. And because hip fractures come with potentially life-threatening complications, preventing falls in the first place is especially crucial. Park Se-young with more.
This 87-year-old woman fractured her hip after falling at her home and had to receive artificial joint surgery. Winter is an especially dangerous time of the year for fall injuries, with the most common fall-related injury in elderly people being hip fractures. And the average mortality rate within 1 year of surgery for hip fractures among patients over the age of 65 is 20%.
When elderly people in their 80s and 90s fracture their hip, it's hard for them to move and they have to lie down. They can develop bed sores or pneumonia, which can result in death. Hip fractures are the only broken bones that come with a very high mortality rate.
This is why it's important for the elderly to prevent falls during the winter. It helps to have slip-resistant flooring at home and use walking canes to help with balance. Experts say walking outside often and getting plenty of sunshine can help increase bone density. Park Se-young, Arirang News.
Now, staying with health-related news, and local researchers have developed a robot that can be swallowed, much like a pill, and helps doctors perform endoscopies much more safely. Jo Sung-min with more.
Here's a capsule that's slightly smaller than a 101 coin. The 2-centimeter-long robotic pill was recently developed by a group of local scientists at the Medical Microbot Center. It is designed to conduct a safe endoscopy on patients. When the pill is swallowed, an LED camera embedded on it captures live feed of the patient's internal organs. It enables doctors to diagnose what condition the patient is suffering from. The capsule can also collect tissue using a microblade, inject medicine directly into the organs, and mark lesions for further examinations and surgeries. Developers say these features separate the capsule from other similar products.
The global competition to develop medical robots is very high because they can cure patients without performing surgeries or large incisions.
The pills are now in their final stage of commercialization. 조성민, Arirang News.
Good morning. We had relatively mild temperatures over the weekend, but Sunday's rain brought in the December chill, dragging down morning lows to the negative side again here in Seoul, and readings will stay below season norms for the time being. Lingering rain clouds will move away by the afternoon, but do expect another band of wet weather moving into the western parts of the country from tonight. And we could even see 3 to 8 centimeters of snow in the Chungcheongnam-do and Jeollabuk-do provinces. So those of you in snow-affected regions will need to be extra careful on the roads tomorrow morning. Daily highs on Monday will get up to between 3 and 10 degrees Celsius, and skies will be partly sunny throughout the day in most parts. We will experience a gradual drop in readings as the first week of December goes on. And lows on Friday are forecast to go as low as -8 degrees Celsius here in Seoul. That's Korea for you, and here's the international weather for viewers around the world.
Well, that's all the news and weather we have for now on this Monday morning here in Seoul. Stay tuned to Arirang TV, and a reminder that our next newscast is coming up at noon Korea time in around an hour and a half from now. So until then, goodbye.
(2016년 9월 28일) 부정청탁 및 금품 등 수수의 금지에 관한 법률 청탁금지법이 시행됩니다. 청탁금지법은 공직자 등의 공정한 직무 수행을 보장하고 공공기관에 대한 국민의 신뢰를 확보하는 것을 목적으로 제정되었습니다. 청탁금지법으로 국민은 동등하게 대우받고 기업은 공정하게 경쟁하며 공직자 등은 청탁으로부터 보호받을 수 있습니다. 부정청탁과 금품수수가 없는 사회를 만들기 위해서 우리 모두의 공감과 노력이 필요한 시점입니다. 청탁금지법을 통해 우리 사회가 보다 공정하고 투명해집니다. 대한민국의 경쟁력이 강해집니다. 우리 아이들에게 더욱 자랑스러운 대한민국이 만들어집니다. 부정청탁 및 금품 등 수수의 금지에 관한 법률. 대한민국 청년 문화의 새로운 시작입니다.
Get all the latest news happening in and out of Korea. The program Foreign Correspondents brings in different journalists from all over the world to sit down and discuss the most recent issues, as well as their own personal opinions regarding the events. Understand current affairs through the engaging conversations and debates on Foreign Correspondents. New fun content every week. What are some of the hottest and trendiest places in Korea, and what do people want to know about Korean culture? Get all the latest footage of exciting events around Korea. From popular tourist destinations, delicious cuisines, local festivals, and trending individuals. Get a glimpse into everyday life in Korea through Now. Economic news packaged from a different angle. Korea had been reliant on Japan for core components and technology, but after Japan's trade restrictions, we are seeing a localization boom in many industries. Learn about Korea's manufacturing industries in the world of robotics, automobiles, batteries, and more. And hear about the importance of independent technology and material development in the country. Korea 4.0.
Look at the beautiful, yeah. It's very good. Hello, this is Travel Agency Season 2, and I am your host / travel guide, Nation Chu, and I am with our fellow traveler all the way from Taiwan. So I think today too, the weather is very perfect for us to travel and explore Yeosu, because if you look at the wonderful sky, it's very blue. The weather is great today. You can even see the wonderful water. Yes, it's very beautiful. Today, I told you that we will be doing a lot more activities. Yeah, I like. You like activities? Yeah, 非常的期待. Okay, start. Let's go.
따라 펼쳐진 갤럭시 모노레일 시간의 끝을 잡으러 누구도 왔어요. 미지에서 떨어 speed of light.
와!
괜찮아? 안 괜찮아요.
This time it's very high. Very high.
이게 한가워. So this is actually, there are 4 places where they have cable cars that go across the sea and land. That is in Singapore, Hong Kong, Vietnam, and Korea. 와우. Oh, 예쁘다. Very, very pretty. 对，那边有很多五颜六色的那个城市，好像 pink 看得清楚吗？跟我看到吗？像这边它的城市，还有它的那个港口，还有大桥。哇哦 ，Party，嗨，我觉得